All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I have a return guest in Dr. Austin Kolish. You know everything about that guy already. He's a regional director here at True Sports, manages now 5 clinics, and is doing an unbelievable job. He has spent the last few years rehabbing one of the best lacrosse players on the planet, a guy by the name of Marcus Holman, who you're going to hear from today. Marcus did an awesome job with this interview. He does a great job of tying in his career and just gives us so many tidbits to learn from in our career and our lives as sports PTs. Marcus's bio is a long one for a really good reason. So many accolades. He started at the Gilman School here in Baltimore. He then moved to University of North Carolina in 2013. He graduated there. He was a Tualatin finalist. That's like lacrosse's Heisman. He is in his 13th year of professional lacrosse, and that's what we're going to get into today. How do you do something at that high of a level for so long? He is one of the best players currently in the league at the age of almost 34. He's a 10 times All-Star. He has won the accuracy contest 3 times at the PLL All-Star break. He is a gold medalist. He played for Team USA. We talk about that experience as well. He's also won a bronze and a silver in his lacrosse career. He's 3rd all-time in goals scored in professional lacrosse. You can find him at Marcus Holman 1 on Instagram. He just launched his new website, mh1lax.com, where he is an outstanding, well-regarded lacrosse skills coach, but he just provides so much wisdom, and so does Austin. They do a great job of talking about Marcus's road back from injury. He went through some adductor stuff, went through PRP. How do you get back from PRP? Some of those little nuances, and just overall does a great job of laying out how to be successful in your chosen career. I'm excited to get your guys' feedback on this. I love this conversation. Without further ado, Marcus Holman and Dr. Austin Kolish. Mr. Marcus Holman, Dr. Austin Kolish for today's episode. Such lax bros. Thank you guys for joining us today. I want to dive into what makes you guys unique in your respective fields. That's where I want to start. Marcus, professional lacrosse player. What makes you great at that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, fellas. Fired up to be here. We're like messing around, getting set up, and then you jump into this like serious podcast role, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta be so serious here. But
locked in.
No, it's cool. I mean, you call us lax bros, but I think we bring more to the table than that.
Oh, for sure.
That is not.
For sure.
It's not a pejorative.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah, it's not a pejorative. It's the highest praise I can give.
I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I think going off that, like, it's just about trying to get better every day. And I've learned that, along this journey of lacrosse, like that is what has kept me going and what I strive to do. And it's led me down a path of some pretty cool success, which is special. But I think if anybody in whatever field you're in, if you just try to take that mindset, just get 1% better every day, success will find you.
Okay, so that's a great overarching outlook on life, specifically to lacrosse.
I've won the shooting contest a couple times now for the PLL, which has been cool. It's kind of something.
He's being incredibly humble.
You could fill in.
No, it's a cool contest, and it's just something I've worked on for years since I was 5-6 years old. And it's kind of the role that I play now at this age. I'm 33. I'm going on 34 in a couple months. So maybe not as quick and agile as I once was. And I think there's better dodgers and passers out there. So I've just kind of morphed into a role of an off-ball player and a shooter. So, but the intangible part of my game, I think, is what I hang my hat on, right? Which is all the skills that take zero talent. So if you can go down that list, right, like communication would be one of those things, hustle, having a positive attitude when you show up to the practice field, like bringing energy, kind of all those little things that, make people great.
Yeah. Okay. Austin, what makes you unique in the world of sports physical therapy?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked Marcus's answer for that. I think that applies like in sport. And I think what's so great about what we get to do every day is there's so many parallels between like being on a team, competing in the sports setting. We're still doing that as therapists, right? And I think those KPIs or those goals maybe look a little bit different. Instead of putting the ball behind, the back of the net, it's getting patients back to doing what they love. So yeah, I like to think that I like to embody that, like 1% better every day, being open to new experiences and having some self-awareness to know where you got to improve.
I like that you're bringing in competition. Like I haven't played pickup ball in a decade because I'm terrified of getting hurt. And what I miss is the competition, but I feel like I'm competing every day. I compete in business. I compete on behalf of my patients. So I think it's a very similar lesson. All right, let me flip it around a little bit. Marcus, what makes Austin great at what he does?
I mean, I go back to just kind of attitude. Guy always has a smile on his face. You would never know if maybe things weren't going well behind the scenes or he's injured, playing in a sixes tournament. Like my PT guy, I think has more injuries than any other doctor I've ever worked with. But I think it's just that positive attitude and a smile. I mean, that stuff's contagious, right? And whenever I come in here and I get to work with Austin, I can always tell that he enjoys what he's doing, and it's not a false sense of like bravado. It's just really enjoyment for trying to get people healthy and, staying present. I'm sure there could be a tendency in your line of work as one patient comes in and the next, it can get maybe monotonous. But I think what you talked about is at the end of the day, you guys are in the relationship business.
Sure.
Yes, it's about health, getting people back, and it's about medicine and sports. It's about all those things, but at the core of it, it's relationships. So just trying to keep those relationships unique. I feel like you do a good job with that.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
And just to give Yoni a quick shout out, our model allows that. We're one-on-one. It's not, I'm not treating you and two other people at the same time. So just to give yet another pitch for what we get to be able to do here, it definitely allows us the avenues to do that.
Yeah, you get one-on-one time for 45 minutes, and we fight like hell to keep that model because it allows you to build a relationship. I don't know how you do it in 30 minutes. I don't know how you do it in 20 minutes. It's just far harder. Forget the physiology of it. You need time to load the athlete. You need time to connect to the athlete. It's also, you make a great point, Marcus, of Austin always looks like he loves what he's doing because he genuinely loves what he's doing, right? And so finding not just a profession, although it's important, not just a niche, although it's important to find what you love, but also a practice in a setting that allows you to love what you're doing. Austin could be a sports PT elsewhere in a setting that doesn't set him up for success, and he's just not going to be happy. And you can fake it only so long. Right. So I think that goes a long way. Marcus, you touched on it a little bit, where you are in your career. I first met you thanks to the great Alex Aust, with some knee pain. And we spent a session or two together. And then fast forward, I don't know, another 6-12 months. Now, or at that point, you're really starting to take it seriously. Rehab, strength and conditioning. So what flipped for you? Was it just Austin that made you interested in rehab? Not so much me.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Lax rehab. What changed for you?
Well, to be honest, it was partially geographically, because I moved back from Utah. I was out coaching at the University of Utah from 2016 to 2021. Moved back to Baltimore. Alex and I moved in. We got married. And she put me on. She was like, you should go see I was having some knee pain. She was like, you should go see this guy Yoni. I'm like, who's Yoni?
What's a Yoni?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I went out to Columbia to see you once, and then I was in do you guys have a Fed Hill? No, Canton? Fells. Yeah, the Fells office and down here. So like Timonium, I've been up there a couple of times. So I'm maybe going for the record for.
You've been to a lot.
I've treated you in
Bear Hills, Timonium, down here. So
like I'm just knocking them off the list. So moving back to Maryland.
Where's the Holman jersey? Where does that hang?
That's in Bear Hills. Yeah.
Okay, it's in Bear Hills.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that an Archers one? We need an updated.
Yes, we do. That was just me hinting at that.
I know. But anyways, long story short, we get connected. I kind of rework my entire training system. And a big part of that is Steven Yorkman, who I got to give a shout out to, who is now the strength and conditioning coach at Gilman School, where I went and was coaching. And I feel like I had a small role in Steven getting that job. Which
We're not happy about that.
Makes me really happy. I know I'm sad that he's not here, but I'm really happy that he's at Gilman and mentoring the next generation of Gilman Greyhounds. So, and Steven was huge and just flipped my mindset. And I'll go into that a little bit right now. I might go on a little bit of a tangent here, but when I was out in Utah and I'm in my mid-20s and I'm having a solid career and I'm training for lacrosse, a lot of what I was doing was really hit based. It was, lighter weights, and it was getting my cardio up. It was always finishing on the assault bike, always finishing with a couple 300s. Just because in my brain and the way I made sense of it was just like, I got to be in shape. I got to be in shape, right? You got to have the cardio. You got to have the, the HRV, like all that stuff has to be good. Moving back here and starting to work with Steven, who kind of falls under the Tony Holler, like feed the cats model of training, which is quick sprints, plyometrics, you lift heavy, but you don't burn yourself out ever. And it was just really working on my legs and my core, getting all that stronger, going back to pogo jumps, which, believe it or not, I had the lowest vertical at UNC, my junior and my senior year. I think you might know.
Yeah.
But what do you tell me? Lacrosse players don't need to jump.
Yep.
Let's stay low to the ground.
Yep.
So as I started working with Steven, I was like, oh my gosh, my legs are getting stronger. It felt good to just sprint 2-3 times a week, move really quickly. And we weren't doing any distance running. We weren't doing any 300s. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be in shape or ready or not. And then obviously fast forward, that became my first season with the Cannons in 2023, Attackman of the Year.
Yeah.
And
you had a really good year.
Revamped my career in year 11, I think that was.
Yeah.
So it really was a shift in training philosophy. I'm really grateful for Steven, and obviously being under the True umbrella here with you guys, like it all just kind of came together.
Yeah. And okay, so let me throw it to Austin before I get into some of those details about what you've done over the last 3 years, both on and off the field. What have you seen change with Marcus, and what's your approach when dealing with an athlete like this? Because remember, our audience is one of sports PTs. Right. They want to know how to deal with an elite level athlete, whatever it is that, whatever their sport is. What do you do with a 30-year-old guy who hasn't trained the way necessarily you want to train him? Yeah. How do you start?
Yeah, it's a really good question. One, I mean, I'm going to call on the fact that, like, thankfully I have experience in lacrosse. Marcus was someone who I knew who he was before we knew each other, independently. So I think part of that, again, I always go back to this, that needs analysis. You got to do that. And I don't care if it's a middle school athlete of a sport you've never heard of or the best shooter in lacrosse in the world. You got to know what the demands of the sport are. And then from there, you can kind of formulate your programming. And yeah, I'll piggyback off that. I think Steven totally attacked it with the right mindset. And I'll give you some credit, Marcus. Like, I think that's a really big moment for you as an individual and for you as an athlete to come into this and say, hey, the way I've been doing it the last 10 years maybe wasn't the most optimal, or maybe whatever. I mean, that's a separate conversation. The reality is you pivoted and you're like, I'm bought in. And I want to give you like your flowers on that, because we've had a lot of conversations about like the science of it, the art of it. And, you and I've talked a lot about that, right? It's a little bit of both. But you bought in and you signed up. So I think shout out to you. You're not always going to have a patient who's that willing, especially when we're talking about our pro guys. Right. For a lot of you've been successful playing at the highest, possible caliber, doing what you've always done. Right. And so it's really easy as an athlete to fall into that. So my advice to the PTs, and again, I've my CSCS, I come from a strength and conditioning background as well. Whether you're a strength coach or a PT, this is a skill. You got to be able to meet the athlete where they are. And some of those early conversations we had was, what are your goals? What's been working? Where's some levers that we can kind of pull and adjust upon? So that was my thought process. And it took time. Like, I don't think we got it perfectly down to a science, like from the start. But again, like, putting in a weekend, 2 weeks in, reflecting, okay, hey, what worked? What can we adjust? I mean, I think that's my thought process on that.
Yeah, I'll quote an outstanding CEO, Dan Rutenberg, who says, what got us to here isn't going to get us to there.
Sure.
And so whatever you were doing to get you to the absolute top of your sport isn't going to work when you're 30, 31, 32, just because it worked when you were 28, 29. So totally, a lot of credit to you for pivoting. What were some of those tests and measures that you looked at? Like, these are the buckets we got to fill with Marcus Holman. Yeah,
I mean, again, building off of like that sprint like philosophy. I mean, that's definitely something that we built off of, like timed sprints. And that was everything from, I mean, my phone's filled with notes of basically the date and then the distance that we did and then our times on it. And then we basically tracked that as a battery that we went across. And that included linear, nonlinear, curvilinear, change direction, sport specific. So maybe he's doing those like with a stick in his hand.
That's what I was going to ask. When do you do that?
Yeah, well, part of it was built around the programming of where he was in the season. So for those of you who don't know, the PL, they play in the summer primarily.
Yep.
And then the PLL Championship Series, that started 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep, that started in 2021. This was the third one.
Yeah, so just for context, basically the main season's in the summer, and then the top 4 teams that compete during the actual season get invited to play in this like week or 2-week long different style of lacrosse. So that was actually a wrinkle that you and I had to adjust for. Is like, okay, well, now it's not we have a whole year to train. It's like we have 6 months to prep for the summer. Then after that, it's like another couple of months, and then we have this different format of lacrosse. So again, just thinking about your end goal and working backwards. And that includes everything from an injury system, an energy system standpoint, injury assessment, strength output, plyometrics, all that stuff.
Okay, break down the differences from a demand between field and sixes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pass it to the pro here.
Wow, I don't know any of the science of it, but sixes obviously is more of a basketball style.
Yeah,
it essentially is basketball with lacrosse sticks, goals. The field's a little bit bigger than a court, but you're running, you're playing a 20 to 30 second shift. You're coming off the field and you're getting a 30 to 40 second rest before you're taking another one. I think there's analytics probably coming out soon about like how many possessions you get in a game, but I think it's, anywhere between 8 to 10 and a quarter. There's 4 quarters, so about 40 shifts of those. Mm-hmm. So, that cardio, that energy system's got to be high. So
for us, as we prepped for the PLL Championship Series 6's event, it was way more like of a metabolic demand. So maybe we did like a little bit more tempo runs than we typically would do in preparation for the summer.
Right.
That is about like, we want you strong, resilient, healthy, and freaking fast and explosive.
Yep.
Not that you don't want those qualities for, the different format, but to your point, you're running way more up and down the field.
Yeah. And again, sixes is a tournament. So
right.
You're playing about 6 games in a period.
It's a ton of volume.
A lot of volume. The summertime, we have 1 game a week.
Yep.
So it is about being really strong early on in the summer, just knowing naturally, partially because of my job, which is also coaching, doing a lot of coaching during the summer, being outside, like guys start to just naturally kind of lose weight as the season goes on. So, that's been a big part of it too, is just navigating with a 3 to 4 month season. I saw a post, I don't know where it came from, maybe one of you guys, just talking about lifting in season. It was Hank actually talking about lifting in season, which is super important as well.
So what does that look like for the PLL? You play 1 game a week. What's lifting? What's strength and conditioning?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies too, right? Again, me being a little bit more experienced and on the older side of things. So like, let's say we play on a Saturday, the games are 12 minutes long. It's not like a crazy, depending on the weather, right? If we're not playing in 100-degree heat, it's not a crazy demand. Started to make some sacrifices in regards to some things so that I can feel better on Sunday morning when I wake up. But what's
that mean? You stop boozing?
Stop drinking.
Okay. Yeah. I actually think that's like a valid point. I mean, we've talked about that too. Just like even just like some of the psychological pieces about that, like you're in that environment, and the reality is like at this stage in your career, like there's lasting negative effects.
Yeah.
You play a game and then you're out till 2 a.m. Like your body's going to recover differently in the 5 days after that.
No, I can't at this, like I said, in my 20s, Ohio Machine and Columbus, like it was awesome. Shout out to those guys. Like if you ever stumble upon this podcast, just know I remember all the great times that we had together. But just the way that I think I play, which is all in, max effort, passion, for that to last a full summer and into September when we want to be playing for a championship, is just not feasible for me right now. And that's fine. And so going back, game Saturday, I would wake up Sunday and try to get like a little lift in, like a recovery lift, 30 minutes, just kind of do a beach lift in the gym, go in there, hit some curls, push-ups, like whatever feels good, just to, I think that helps with some like testosterone rebuild in the recovery process. And then like Monday would be like a true like off day, stretching, a lot of stretching, maybe come in here if I have any injuries that need to be worked on, needled, and then probably get like Tuesday, Thursday as 2 good days of weightlifting in. Again,
And that's new.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that's a big change. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you were doing that previously.
yeah, just like, yeah, in terms of, I think just systematically how my lifts looked
Yeah.
5 years ago versus now is different. And it's, again, I feel good. I feel strong. It's made a difference for just game days for me.
Now, everything the two of you mentioned is very energy system dependent. This just sounds like I'm talking to a strength coach and their athlete. So why do you work with a PT?
Well, I think that's the thing about Austin is, honestly, sometimes I forget he is a PT because like we come in. I know he's a little bit of everything, man. This guy's jack of all trades.
Why do you think it's important?
But I think it's important because, again, I have dealt with some injuries coming in here and kind of reworking and I know you guys have such an emphasis on the core muscles, which are huge in every sport, primarily lacrosse, because there's a lot of twisting. Lacrosse is a really dynamic sport.
Yeah.
Like it just is. And so, working with Austin, I always know that at some point he's going to tie those.
Yeah.
I don't know, shitty exercises.
Yeah.
He's going to tie in some Copenhagens.
Yeah.
He's going to tie in some like weighted dead bugs. He's going to tie in
It's on record. This guy loves
Nordic
Copenhagens.
hamstring curls. And I'm just going to be like, I would never do these if I was by myself.
Yeah. I've heard you say that.
And not to say that a strength and conditioning coach wouldn't do that, but
Right.
it's just like, I know that he's always going to come back to that. And it's,
Well, and I think also not that, we use it from time to time, but like the manual stuff, I think that there's a ton of value to that. Like I would say most of our sessions, once you're in season, like that's a part of our day to day, like whether it's soft tissue, as you mentioned, needling, like the recovery piece, I think that's valuable. I mean, these guys are putting their bodies on the line, especially the way this guy plays.
Yeah. Well, you make a great point. And I think about like some of the athletes I work with now, where coming out of surgery, there's so much hands-on time. Like your whole session is on the table and then you want to graduate them. But what that means for the clinician is you got to be able to do both things. Yep. You got to be able to put your hands on a patient, assess them, et cetera. You also have to understand energy systems. You have to understand how to progress, how to scale different exercises at very high levels. I think that's what makes a great sports PT. I'm always in the middle of a conversation of what makes a great sports PT. And I think that's a huge piece of it. You got to play both ends. Yeah. Very acute injury all the way to either chronic stuff or just training. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of value there. Just so the audience kind of understands the sport of lacrosse. I'm from Baltimore, so I talk about it as if I've played my whole life. You guys have played your whole life, right? But I am amazed at what the sport demands in that we're talking about big-ass, strong dudes that have to move at very high velocities and are insanely technical from a fine motor standpoint. So, I'm amazed at the long sticks that they're able to understand where that head is so far away from them. But the principle applies to everyone carrying a stick. Their understanding of space, their dexterity, and you got to run like a deer. So that's why I love rehabbing this thing. Yeah. Like putting that entire world together, and that's the challenge of being a great lacrosse PT. Is understanding kind of all of those nuances. I want to dig into these ridiculous statistics.
We don't have to.
Most people, most people as they age, LeBron excluded, usually their statistics dip, right? You, on the other hand, went from third or fourth in the league in 22 to second or third in the league in 23. Last year, you led the league in goals. You're older today than you were yesterday, just like every other human. Outside of the strength and conditioning principles you just hit on, what do you credit that ascension to? Most people are descending. You're not just staying the same, you are ascending.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
The correct answer is Alex Off.
Hey, family, support system.
There you go.
That is hugely important. People around you that care and cheer you on, I think just in terms of like how professional lacrosse is in an outdoor sense, I think, it's not full time, right? So we're not getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to play this game. It's, anywhere from 25,000 is the rookie minimum to probably 50,000 is the highest paid player, which I'm not one of those.
Yeah.
Pops, if you're listening, who's my coach. But no, it's I think I just chose to commit to this, and I was like, I'm just gonna ride this out, and I want to be as good as I can be. I don't want to have any regrets when I move on from this sport, which has just given me so many amazing memories. We know there's a shelf life, right, for everybody. I mean, LeBron, maybe not, he might play for 50 years, but you can't do this forever. So at the time when I moved back to Maryland, as we spoke about earlier, I just kind of committed to it. And, I think when guys hit that 5th or 6th season and they turn 29 or 30 and then they get married, and then it's like, all right, I'm
done.
I'm going to move on,
Yeah.
and that's no qualm to them. It's like I said, the money's not there to do this full time, but I've been fortunate enough to make it work. Like I've got enough in my pocket to pay the bills, and Austin and I are doing some brand partnerships together.
Love it.
And,
which is what?
Oikos.
Yeah, give that a full shout out.
Oikos,
what is it?
Oikos yogurt. No, we filmed something back out on the turf, but so I mean, there's ways around it. I've been really fortunate. So I know that's kind of a weird answer. I also. Brody Merrill has been a cool influence to me in the past couple of seasons coaching our Cannons teams. And he sent me a text like 2 years ago, and he was like, playing in your 30s can be really rewarding, ... as long as you keep up with the physical part.
Yeah.
And, I've invested in the physical part of my body. Like I've invested a lot a lot of money into that part of it.
And we appreciate that. Yes.
Of course you do. Of course you
love
do.
that about you.
So, and that's a choice, right? So that's part of a commitment as well. Like, you rattle off the stats. Like I didn't stumble into that like that. That was a choice. And obviously I've played with incredible teammates who are a massive part of that as well. Like, I know this is a rambling answer, but
I think it's a totally valuable answer. I mean, you're talking about like where you put your focus, where you put your time.
Exactly.
And time is something that a lot of people don't have an endless supply of. And you've chosen to dedicate that time. You also put research in. I don't think you stumbled into Austin Kolish or into Stephen Yorkman by happenstance, right? So what is it that you were looking from a trainer? From a PT.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I met you, and obviously Alex referred you to me, like is culture, is a place where, athletics is obviously valued. Like that's not the case at every physical therapy group. You guys put a big emphasis on that. And just the relationship part of it. Like, when that recommendation comes of like, you should work with this guy, he's an awesome guy, like you'll really like him. And then you recommend Austin, it just kind of is that trickle down effect of culture, which, when I was reading the questions you were going to be talking about, I was like, we're talking a lot about science and this and that. Like, I think that the part that I love being around you guys is the true sports culture is really, really solid. And that starts at the top, and then it's a trickle down effect. And, the word buy-in is used a lot, but like, there's got to be a standard to which we kind of operate things around here. And I'm grateful for you guys and kind of taking me in almost as like one of your own.
Listen, it makes it easy because I remember like Austin coming in. Austin was in Jersey, and it took me like 6 months of begging him to work here, to come down here and work. And what I promised him was, you're going to treat the best lacrosse players in the world. I didn't know Marcus Holman at the time. Didn't know you were one of the best lacrosse players at the time. But it's got to be the company's mission to put the desired athlete in front of the therapist and vice versa. So it's a no-brainer, right? Like he is going to give you way more than someone who doesn't care as much about lacrosse. And I know that that's his passion. So that should be our goal. So if you're at home running a business, think about how do you empower, it's a reward.
Yeah.
To hand a Marcus Holman to an Austin Kolish. The other thing is, like we've mentioned Alex like a million times in this pod already, I came to Aust from one of her buddies just because I was treating that person, and it's really about the network you build. So every single interaction, like, do I work with Alex and think maybe she'll send me her boyfriend? Or no, I don't. But I give Alex the best because I really care what happens to her, and that trickles down into another referral. We always say at True Sports, you got to turn 1 into 2, into 3, into 4, and that comes with the interpersonal interactions. What do you want to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, just doubling down on everything you said. I think Marcus is spot on. Like that's culture. We just had a very long conversation with all of our clinic directors, regional directors, office managers yesterday. We dedicated some time for our leadership series. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about developing that culture, showcasing that, mentoring that to our new PTs. So yeah, I mean, I know we have a lot of new grad PTs that listen to the pod. Like that's some easy low hanging fruit that you guys can snag onto. Like one, find a place when you're looking for jobs that has great culture and be bought in, be present there.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get a little bit more sciencey, I'm always thinking about what I call the art of the handoff. So Alex meets me. She refers you. You come to me. You drive a little bit to see me. Am I right so far? Mm-hmm. Okay. You drive a little bit to see me. I take a look at your knee. We come up with some exercise. At some point I said, hey, there's this guy Tim or there's this guy Austin. I think you should see him. What closes the deal to the athlete to trust me enough to go see someone else?
I mean, the easy answer is you fix my knee.
Okay, so
you fix my knee pain.
Yeah,
like
be decent at your craft.
Yeah,
but why? But then wouldn't you be like, dude? Okay, but I want to see you. You help me with my knee.
Then it's just like the trust part, right? Which comes with being authentic and, yeah, I mean, like I said, when we came in for the one-on-one, you were dialed in with me. You asked questions about me. Like you were excited to learn more about who I was as a person. So when I feel that from someone and you refer me to somebody else, I'm like, okay, like I trust this guy and I trust his recommendation. So,
okay.
There's so many nuggets there, man. Like again, if you're a new grad PT and you're like, how do I become great? Like guys, Marcus just told you what it is.
Yeah.
Like be present, ask the right questions, listen. Active listening is like so valuable.
Yeah.
It's funny though. I think the first time you and I interacted was at a pickup lacrosse game. I think it was at a box game. Okay. And I think at the time it was like, oh, like sweet, we have to play together. And like, that was it.
Yeah.
And I think it was through that. And you're like, oh, like I got this groin thing going on.
Yes.
So that's my other piece of feedback. And I've been on the record saying that, like, you got to be where those people are. I'm fortunate enough that, I'm still desperately holding on to the laces as long as I can. But I mean, even if I couldn't play or if I was completely done, like be in those environments, no coaches, no skill coaches, go cover an event, do free screens at those things, like be in those communities because that's how you make those connections. And that's super valuable.
Yeah. And you are great at that. Your schedule is so full. The clinics you manage are so full, and still you spent last weekend at an F45, doing free screens or whatever, just putting yourself out there because you got to keep it up. If you don't keep it up, you're going to get stale. And someone behind you, this is the competitive side of it.
Yeah.
It's like someone else is trying to do it.
Right.
Like someone else is trying to play pickup with Marcus Holman. So you better get your ass right to those games so that you stay front and center. Give me one or two real lessons from your experience that have allowed you to stay healthy or productive for so long.
One or two lessons just from, what do you mean? Like my training and coming in here?
Yeah.
I mean, listen to your PTs. When we're on a recovery timetable, like.
Did you listen to Nina at UNC?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah, I did. So, well, here's the deal. So my career started off when I got off to college. My dad was just like, stay out of the training room. That was
okay.
What he told
Common.
me. And personally, I think more kids could use hearing that. I think there's a balance. I'm not trying to take business away from you.
I'm with you.
But let's just candid conversation here, because I think what eventually sometimes happens is you go in for a little nick and tear, and then you just kind of stay in there and you stay in there. And then once something hurts, something else hurts. So you can fall into that trap of, I don't know what the correct wording is, but we got to self-heal, and you can handle hard things. Like the body is resilient. We are resilient human beings. Our skin is resilient. Like we heal up scars. Our muscles are resilient. Our ligaments are too. Obviously, if a major thing happens, like you should be in the training room. Let's put that.
Thank you.
Maybe you could
get that. Yeah.
But no, I think just, things I've learned, just, trust is a huge thing to have. And that's not built in one session. It's built in multiple sessions. It's built in showing up, just like Austin said, at an outside event. and it's another way for you to get clients. Like, you come to my PLL games at Homewood in the summer. We say what's up to each other after the game. All of my teammates see you.
Yeah.
All of my teammates have heard of you. 5 guys live in Maryland. If they get hurt, one of them's gonna, it's just
Okay, now what about like clinically we would say, what about like actual strength and conditioning, actual exercises? Like, hey, thank God I added this because this helps me stay.
I don't know if he's gonna
be
thankful for any of the exercises, but there's definitely some good ones we've added.
No, I mean, for sure. When I had an adductor, like, kind of tendonitis a couple years ago. We started working on that Copenhagen's were one that like I'd never really done. And then I ended up like loving those, which is weird.
Okay. But that's a great answer.
Yeah. And at the recommendation of Austin, it was like, okay, this has been going on for a year and a half. Like, what are our options now? And he was like, I think you should look at getting a PRP shot. I did some research, got the PRP shot. It was gone in a month and a half.
Yep.
And I've not had 1 ounce of pain from that, knock on wood. And that was bothering me for like a year and a half. It became tendonitis. So that was something that I can specifically look at and be like, I don't think without that recommendation or without that recovery, like, that was a really annoying injury that I had.
And they tend to be, and it's because of what you stated previously, which is just the constant rotation, right? You can't play the sport without rotating excessively. Austin has a whole goddamn course on rotation in the rotational athlete and like how to coach it and how to rehab and stuff like that. So that is hugely valuable. Can you walk me through that rehab process? Because I think that is so unknown in our world.
Yeah.
The PRP world, when do you get PRP and how do you get this guy back on the field after?
Yeah. Before we get that, I want to add another one that stands out in terms of like specific interventions that I saw transformation from your end is like the Bulgarian. Like, I don't want to blow you up too much, but dude, when we started, I think we were grabbing like
35s.
I was going to say like 25s. I mean, dude, last summer leading to the season, we were sending like 90s, 85s for like, 8 to 10 reps, multiple sets, pairing that with other stuff, pairing that with plyos and box jumps. So anyway, I think my point with that is we've done a lot of unilateral or offset tandem stance training. And I think that is so valuable as a lacrosse player because you're never, ever, especially if you're an attackman or a midi or honestly any position, you're never going to have both feet planted. I think that's super valuable to load heavy axially through double limb. You need that. That needs to be part of the program. You got to put heavy load on your nervous system and on your body. That said, all of our accessory work is single leg or some iteration of that. And I think that was actually a big part of our training program that was a little different.
Okay, great add-on. It's also, I'm a baseball guy, so like everything I do with lacrosse athletes on the lacrosse field is like baseball originated, and that is a huge difference. Baseball pitchers live with 2 feet on the ground during a lot of as they come through. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen as much. 1, 2, they never lateral shuffle and unload a pitch. That doesn't happen. Right. There is no time and room. That doesn't exist. It's coming from a standstill. Yeah. So it's different in the way you start to apply some of these things. And that's why my rehab, while it originates from the baseball perspective and the throwing perspective, it has to get to a different level with lacrosse because of all the variability that you see on a field and how reactive you need to be while still generating high levels of rotational force. So we're thinking about back to that original piece. How the hell do you get a 31-year-old Marcus Holman?
Yeah, at the time,
At the time.
So, and I forget exactly when we connected with it, but I think you had been dealing with it for a while.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'll give a quick shout out to, I know Dr. Jeremy Beyer and Matteo Vertucci are like obsessed with this proximal, like adductor stuff. So hit them up. I definitely got some insight from them too, in terms of like how to manage it, because it was like at this stage, it was chronic.
Yeah. This was fall of 2022.
Right.
And, in the following spring, I left the Archers to be on the Cannons.
Right.
So that was like a big part of my off season was like, I need to get this healthy. I need to get this right.
By the way, that's exactly when you went from 19 goals to 30 goals. Yeah. I knew that off the top of my head. It's pretty amazing way that. Okay. So, and that happened because?
So initially, well, 2 things. One, I think, Marcus mentioned that was one of the first conversations we had in the clinic. You were like, I don't usually talk to people like you. You're like, my dad always said, don't talk to people like you. So I know. So I think my approach with that, I mean, again, I'm listening to my patient. He's telling me like, this is a new territory for me. So if I kick down the door and I'm like, look, you got to do X, Y, Z, and I'm non-negotiable about it, we probably wouldn't be sitting here today. So that's the first piece, like that soft skill aspect. Like I cannot hyper emphasize that enough to our new PTs. But the other piece from the clinical side, I mean, we started by, we did a screen. We did an assessment. We found those provocative positions. Because of the nature, you're a right-handed player and you're predominantly right-handed finisher. Looking at the internal rotation of each hip, looking at the external rotation of each hip, looking at the imbalance there, basic strength testing, functional strength testing for core, for neuromuscular control about the pelvis and lumbar spine, looking for end range rotation. I mean, this was also another like big moment in my early on in like us working together, like that windmill position.
Oh yeah.
Like he had no thoracic spine mobility. And look, I'm not going to go down that whole like interregional dependence train, but I think there's something to that.
That's a real thing.
And so like, I think finding, again, your big check boxes of, okay, what do we need to address with this athlete, and having a really dedicated program and plan for that. And I thought you did a great job of being the athlete, buying in and being like, okay, let's commit to this.
Yeah. You know what helps, what I have found helps is, even though he's a professional lacrosse player at that point, you showing him how much he sucks at something. I mean, Marcus, like it's rare that guys who function at your level in any sport are so clearly humbled by what they can't do. You spend your whole life doing what you're awesome at, and then you meet a PT who humbly suggests, dude, you could be even better if you fill this gap. Yeah. So showing that to him and being very succinct with that delivery is huge. When do you say, you got to have blood draw and spin it down and shoot it?
Yeah. So, I mean, initially from like a clinical standpoint, I forget exactly where you were. I think we were like coming up in this season, like, or we had like somewhat of a timeline.
Yeah, we had Champ Series coming up in February.
So it was like
we had worked the fall to try and like avoid, just try to heal it on its own. But remember, the problem with me was like 90% of everything I did was fine. It was like the 10%, which was like deep range of motion in a Bulgarian or in single leg positions or shooting on the run. It was like I just couldn't. It was like I couldn't do it. So 90% of things were great. I could sprint, I could jump, I could lift heavy, but like those couple things, I was like, we need to. It's not going away.
Yeah, initially it was a lot of isos. And starting that, I think literally the first thing we did was like a hook lying, so you're lying on your back, knees bent, squeezing a ball, and like just learning how to like engage, like core, get into a posterior pelvic tilt. Like that was some of the early stuff we did. We eventually then, worked to like a bent knee Copenhagen, a long lever one, extended time. We added weight, added rotation. So that was my approach on that from a clinical standpoint. But yeah, I think it got to a point of like 90% of the way there. I think someone through the organization as well, like PLL had suggested that. And yeah, I mean, I've seen good results, at least the proximal joints with that.
And I was going to say, preface that, because at first Austin was like, I got a PRV shot in my Achilles or ankle. And he was like, didn't really do anything.
Okay, but it didn't rupture. So
not yet.
Yeah. But he was like, injuries closer to the core, they've had better success. So
and I've seen that clinically. And I think you're a good example of that.
Yep.
So I think that, and again, by the way, like it wasn't that and that was it. Like we were still progressing stuff. And as you recovered from that, we hit that even harder. We increased the load.
Did you back it down first? Like he gets PRP, next day he comes into the office. What do you do?
There was 2 weeks of like no running, really.
Yeah. But we ran pretty quick because then the season was coming up.
Right.
So
we had the month and a half up until sixes, which I played in with no issues. And then yeah.
Okay, and when did you start? No running, but when did you start actually getting back into loading, like heavier Copenhagens or prolonged?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like I thought it was like as soon as you were able to tolerate. It was a lot of just like, hey, let's just see how it feels. And again, I just had this conversation with one of our newer staff PTs this past week. Like I say that, and like you and I know what that means. Like, yeah, I just like found an entry point and went from there. There is so much beauty in being able to take, again, the end goal. What does Marcus Holman need to be able to do, and break that down into either planes of motion and then identify like specific interventions. So if I know he needs to be able to plant in the transverse plane and like do a roll dodge or take a hard step and bounce out of that and get a shot off, like, okay, how do we break that down? Like, what is the most basic form of that? Maybe for like the split dodge, it's an eccentric single leg movement. So how do we even work that down? It's a single leg controlled running man or something like that. So being able to go through that checklist and know, okay, all right, that felt good, right? Okay, now let's progress it. Okay, that felt good. Now let's progress it. So that was my thought process.
Yeah, and with lacrosse, how important it is to understand how multiplanar these guys are.
Oh yeah,
right.
I mean everything.
Everything. Yeah, exactly. And so it's just another lever to pull, like you're talking about. Like, okay, you did this well. Now try it with force moving in a different plane.
Yep.
Same move. Then how'd that go? And then start to double them. What were you going to say?
No, nothing. I thought you guys, like, I just showed up and you were like, just do some bench press and do some.
That's it. Bench press didn't help your girl.
There's all this scientific stuff behind it. You guys you're smarter than you look. Honestly.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, looking back at your career as a lacrosse player, young athlete coming up, what do you wish you knew then? We're talking high school, college.
What do I wish I knew? I don't know. That's a good question.
What would Marcus today tell Marcus in senior year of high school?
I mean, I'd say do exactly what you did. I would say don't change a damn thing about it. You know, I think you gotta work when nobody's watching. You know, and when I got to college, I was just, you know, you're in high school and you have a pretty good career. You get recruited to UNC, and my mindset as soon as I committed, and I tell high schoolers this, which is kind of just a weird way to think about it, but it's how my brain worked, was like, okay, I'm a junior. I just committed. Junior season starts. I want every person that comes and they watch Gilman play and they watch Marcus Holman play, I want them to be like, damn, UNC is getting a stud. I don't want them to be like, man, that kid's going to UNC. You know, like, it was so weird. My motivation to be great was, it really came from within, but it was about kind of like the external look, which I don't know is maybe right or wrong, but everybody has their own, you know, kind of ways for why they do things, right? You think about Jordan talking about like his high school coach who cut him, right? You know, and then you get to college and it's like you're just another guy on the you're low man on the totem pole. So, all right, how am I going to get better? So, my going into my freshman year, that summer, worked out really hard. Was the only freshman to pass the run test. Okay, you passed the run test. So what happens? You get to pick your jersey number. Okay, senior who just graduated, Bart Wagner, went to St. Paul, wore number 1. All right, I'm going to take number 1. He was the best player on the team for the past 3 seasons. I'm wearing number 1 now. I'm a freshman. Okay, like, you're wearing number 1. I don't think you should be sitting on the end of the bench, right, is what I tell kids who decide to wear that jersey number. So there was like a little bit of pressure. Okay, let's get to work. So, and then practices would come and I'd stay after practice, sometimes for 30 minutes, sometimes for 5. But I just was consistent with that, and I just let time do the work. And all those extra reps, 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time, they chunk up, they add up, and then you get confidence. And because you believe in yourself, because you put the work in, it's like it all feeds off one another.
It sounds like you are a chip creator, meaning you get the looks from UNC, you commit to UNC. I gotta create another chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Like now what am I pissed about? Or now what am I going to show someone? How am I going to prove? I just won.
Yeah.
So what do I have left to prove? Well, I'm going to prove that they made the right decision.
Yeah. I think, and then you just, at some point you realize, and this is kind of where I'm at in my career. This will be my 13th season coming up. You know, I'll be 34. You realize that the joy is in the journey. And it's like, it's just about the process. And I love coming in here and working out, like, you know, equally as much as I love winning a lacrosse game. Like, that feels great. There's a lot of external validation from that, but this in the process, like, internally is everything to me. And when you come to realize that and accept that, then you can deal with championship wins, you can deal with championship losses, you can deal with anything really, because as long as you're willing to kind of get back to work, like, you're never going to get there. Yeah. Like, I realize that about lacrosse too. It's such a unique sport, especially with the stick. Like, it's just, I'm never gonna get there, you know, but I'll keep trying. That's kind of it.
I mean, I love that, but same question to you on the clinical side. What would you tell a young, clean-shaven Austin Kolish up and coming that you know now that you wish you knew then?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the stuff I've already talked about in terms of like giving advice. Like, things I think I knew I was doing the right thing. Maybe just a little bit more of that like positive affirmation of like, no, dude, it's worth it. Go meet that coach somewhere. Go sign up for that summer league. Go take that course.
But you knew that, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But sometimes it's like you don't know you can't like put into words or into like you can't paint that picture of what that end vision is going to look like. I mean, and I think about this a lot. Like, I've talked about it multiple times in the pod, but like that leap I had to take even to come down here, like that was a big life decision. I had no idea I was going to end up here.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy, obviously, with how that came out. So, yeah, if I could talk to myself 5 years ago, I would just say like, just keep doing it.
Yeah. When are you going to know it's time to hang it up?
Good question. Somebody asked me this the other day. Like, it's not all data driven, but like I look down at that stat sheet and I'm like,
Still got it.
I still kind of playing at a high level. I think I add value just in terms of who I am as a teammate. That's what I hope. Trying to make guys better, trying to make Asher Nolting the face of the PLL, who I think is the best attackman in the league. Trying to encourage a guy like Ethan Rawl to maybe quit his full-time job and go into lacrosse. Like you're hungry, you love coaching, you're great with kids, you have a bright future. Go do this thing, man. Like, you're not going to regret it when you're 50, 60 years old that you spent 5 years trying to pursue your dream. And then you can kind of see what came out of it. You will regret if you just stuck with that 9 to 5 and you only played 3 seasons, anyway. So
dude, it's the same crap with PT though.
Yeah.
Like I talk to people applying and they might choose to go elsewhere because they'll make an extra $2,000-$3,000. And it's foolhardy, because to your point, like when it's all said and done, when you're done, you're looking back, it's like, did I do what I love? Did I impact people appropriately? Did I impact the type of people I wanted to impact? Stuff like that. Like it's not easy. You gotta try to look through that lens. I think you've done an awesome job of that. What's next?
Thanks. Yeah. I truly don't know when the end will be. If we have a great season and the Cannons win a championship this year, like, it's going out on top would be cool.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty rare.
You're not going to do that. What's next in your game? What do you hope to add to your game?
More left-handed goals.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
kidding.
You just can't shoot lefty?
More twisters. Way more twisters.
More twisters, yeah. I don't know, just more of the same. Just maybe some more assists.
Listen, it can't. Oh, so dude. You got a long way to go on the assists.
That's not my role. I'm playing my role. Right?
Fair.
Role definition is very important.
Okay, that's fair. I'm looking at other superstars, the Kobes of the world, the LeBrons of the world. Every summer, they're adding another facet to their game. Hey, I don't have a fadeaway. Let me spend all summer working on a fadeaway. Hey, I'm weak on the crossover. I got to add this. What are you looking to add to your game? It can't be more of the same because you're going to plateau.
No, you're right. I think a couple years ago when I got to the Cannons, it was range on my shot. I think I had a couple 2s. I don't know.
You did.
The stat. 2023.
Yeah.
What I have 2, maybe 2.
Correct. Actually, you went from 0 in 21 to 2, then 1, and then last year, your best year from long distance.
Yeah, so I had 3 last year. So like that was a piece where I've always like been right on that line of like 13 yards. It's a weird leap, but that 1 yard as a shooter is, I think, mentally a hurdle to get over. So that was one, just because the 2 is so valuable. It's even more valuable than it is in basketball, right? And you watch NBA now, all they do is shoot 3s.
Yep.
And right, the reason being 2 points to 3 points is what, a 33% increase. 1 point to 2 points is a 50% increase. Stats, science.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I know this is a science.
I'm not going to pick that math apart, but go ahead.
So that was part of our, we talked about that strategy a lot. We broke the record the Cannons did last year for 2s in a season with the team. Because it was just something we talked about and we practiced a lot. So that was cool. I had a lefty runner down the alley last year against the Outlaws.
Let's try to get 2 next year. So, okay. So you made a lot of 2s. You made 3 2s, right? How does he get better at that from a strength and conditioning perspective?
Oh, man.
What's he missing?
That's a good question. I think, and this is the other piece that's different for like a caliber athlete at this point, a lot of this is like skill acquisition and like neuromuscular. Like, so my answer to that would be like, you got to practice twos.
Yeah, shoot from further out. You want to be good at shooting from further
Right.
out? Shoot from further out.
Yeah, so I think that's part of it, and we actually do a bit of that too. I mean, that's part of our programming, and again, like I think this comes back to like how Yoni started. We're relaxed guys.
Yeah.
Like we always carve in 10 minutes
Right.
to have the stick in our hand during our sessions here. But I think that's how you go about that, and then I'm always going to go back to like core, hip, leg strength. Like if you could produce more force, that ball's going to fly a little faster.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so continuing to work on velocity and rotational forces. I love that. Dude, that sounds like baseball.
Yeah.
Funny how that works. It all comes back to baseball. Okay, a little bit off the cuff. I did not send these to you, Marcus.
Okay.
Who's the best lacrosse player you ever played against?
Against?
Yep.
I guess I've been playing against him for the past 2 years, but Tom Schreiber.
Okay.
I played with him for 9 seasons, but against him for 2. He's the best. He's just the best.
Because?
Vision, passing, scoring, clutch gene, humility, teammate, leader.
I feel so validated by you
gotta get
saying
him on
that
the pod.
answer because Yoni hit me with that, and I was like, that was my answer. So
Oh, it was? Okay.
not that I played against him, but
Hey, you know ball.
He knows ball. I don't. Okay, who is the toughest defender you've gone against?
I used to have some battles with a guy named Tucker Durkin, who is recently retired. Went to Johns Hopkins, coaches at Drexel right now. World team guy, just tough as nails. We played against each other in high school. He went to LaSalle in Philly. I went to Gilman. We just butted heads. He went to Hopkins. I went to UNC. We played together 1 year on Team USA, but he was just always tough and physical and just like mean.
What year did you play with him?
We played together in 2018 when we won a gold medal.
Yep.
Where was that?
In Israel.
Okay.
Shout out.
How was that experience?
Incredible.
Because?
We won.
Fair. Okay, you would have won it anywhere. Why? What shocked you about the country?
It was amazing. No, we stayed on a kibbutz. Yeah. It was really cool. The weather was great. The food, like our team meals were just unbelievable. Yeah. Just like fresh food. And yeah, the weather was great. The crowds were awesome. Like the whole environment was really cool. It was such a special trip for me. My family came over. We ended up winning the gold. You do a day trip to Jerusalem and you're there and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so powerful. And my family is very faith driven. My parents, especially my dad, is a Catholic and a Christian. So it was incredible. Bring them over, we win the gold, and then we do a family trip to Italy after because we're already, halfway across the world. So that was a really cool moment for me in my career. Just like, dang, like this is, this game of lacrosse, this sport has given me some things out. When do you ever get a chance to take your family to Italy really, or to be there, or to be in Jerusalem, like with your family, so it was really special.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. They don't get enough good press. So I love hearing that. Okay, what about Austin? Let's shift to you. If Marcus Holman is the best lacrosse player you've ever worked with, who are you dying to work with?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because I feel like Marcus knows him, so he could just send them over.
We gotta get Asher back in.
Asher, yeah, would love to see Asher a little bit more. Well, although he was here a couple times this summer. Love working with the big fella. Man, there's so many names I could throw out there.
But if there's one.
Yeah, you're a D guy at heart. So
D guy at heart. I mean, I had a hell of a time working with Matt Dunn. We spent a long time together. You and I collaborated on that rehab, and he was great. I mean, just the stand-up dude, great athlete, and great.
He dealt
rehabber.
with a lot of injury. Yeah, was his hip? Was it?
Yeah, he had some hip stuff going on.
He had a lot of hip stuff. I was amazed with him. Yes, great dude, decent guitar player, freak athlete. Really freaky what he can do at that size. He's like such a great example of what I was talking about before, like his ability to move and be a monster. Right.
He doesn't guard me anymore because he guards the best attackman usually, which is Asher, and I'm not that. But I remember 2018, maybe last year, the MLL, maybe his rookie season, guarded me, Rochester Rattlers, a machine. I pick the ball off the end line, go to make a split dodge, boop, poke check, balls on the ground, down the other end of the field. 2 possessions later, same thing happens. Split to my right hand, throws that V hold, balls on the ground. I was like, who the F is this guy?
Yeah.
Lo and behold, 7 years later and championships and Team USAs, I was like, he's pretty.
That's
pretty
what you
good.
got to expect from a Terp, dude.
I know. Trust me, I hear enough about the
way
Terps at
we
home.
roll. Did you think about Maryland?
Did I think about? I didn't really get recruited by Maryland.
Why?
Yeah, don't ask me. Ask Dave Cottle. I don't know.
We got to get Cottle on the pod. Give him a talking to. Okay, you guys have been a revelation. Thank God we worked out these tech difficulties. If it's not coming through clearly, we tried our best. But awesome science. You did a great job with the science.
Thank you.
Great picture and application of what you do to what we do on the field. So I learned a ton. Parting words.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to give a shout out to Marcus. Like, I'm in a really unique position where I get to call him a friend. I get to call him a patient. And I get to call him a teammate. Like, we play a lot together in the off season, which is a really unique experience. You talked about at the top of the pod, like, you know, the different attributes that make you great. I mean, dude, you hustle all the time. You hustle in life. You hustle in your relationships, you know, with your friends. Like, you know, we've had a lot of life, you know, conversations as well on the field, like going for ground balls. Like, this is the best shooter in the world. He's also the toughest dude off a ground ball. Like, that usually isn't 1-to-1. So just shout out to you. And it's been awesome to work with you. And then maybe a little pitch for Marcus Holman Times True Sports Camp number 2 this summer.
Hell yeah.
I know. And I'll say the same for Austin. Like, we've become really good friends. You know, physical therapist, like, you take out the physical therapist is there. So, you know, a lot of hopes, dreams, a lot of worries, like, you know, early mornings and afternoons, like I come in here and I'm able to just like unload some things. And it's a pretty, you know, it's a sacred space and it's a cool relationship that we have. So I'm just grateful for it, to be a part of this, you know, kind of True Sports team as I'm on my journey here, and many more wins, many more processes, many more
And
lifts.
a championship.
That's right. And a PLL championship for the Boston Cannons 2025. Let's go.
Hell yeah.
Let's
I love
go.
it. Way to close out. Thank you guys. Thanks everyone for listening. Let us know what you loved. Let us know what you hated. Let us know who you want us to have on next. Appreciate you all. Bye-bye.